evolving with the cosmos. The cosmos is full beyond measure of elegant truths, of exquisite interrelationships, of the awesome machinery of nature. The surface of the earth is the shore of the cosmic ocean. On this shore, we've learned most of what we know. Recently, we've waded a little way out, maybe ankle deep, and the water seems inviting. Some part of our being knows this is where we came from. We long to return, and we can, because the cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself. Carl Sagan.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, Mary. Welcome, everyone, to Gems from the Wisdom Tradition. Sponsored by Still and Moving Center until some point in the very near future, where we'll say that it's sponsored by Still and Moving Meditation Fellowship. Our topic this week is lightning. And we have perhaps joining us, if she's able to tune in from Southwest Colorado, someone from the Dene tradition, which is the Navajo tradition, to join us. And in the meantime, in case she has trouble getting these electric connections going, we'll go ahead and get started ourselves. And I'd like to show you a couple images that will help us, I think, in understanding the topic from the point of view of this article from Hermes Magazine. So 1 minute, and I'll share my screen with you. Okay. Okay. So I think you can see this. Let me see if I can. There. Can you see that fairly well? So this is from more of a northern Indian tribe, not the Southwest tribes, but you can see the way that they've depicted lightning here. And then this is an actual lightning strike. I think it's sequential. I think it's coming down and maybe going back up, which is very interesting. This is a picture from Southwest Indian tribes, maybe Navajo. And I don't know whether this zigzag pattern going down here is lightning or water. There is a close correspondence between the two. And I'm also wondering with this photograph, whether there's a correspondence with lightning. And this is looks very Navajo to me. So I'm wondering whether that pattern may depict lightning as well. Oh, welcome, Bob. It's nice to see you too. I think what I shall do is put onto the screen now this passage from a remarkable article by Helen Valborg on lightning. It's a very, very, very synthetic article. She takes information from many, many of the world's traditions, as well as you can see in this reading from science as well. And I'll see how I can best share this with you now on our screen. Let's see. How about that? Is that legible to all of you?
I got it off the email, and that's bigger. This Well, I can't read that, but I can read it off my email.
Okay.
I
Can
read it.
anybody? Okay. It might be. Let's see. Did that help to take off the bold? Does that make it more legible or less? One way or the other. Okay.
It's
fine either way.
Pardon me?
Fine either way.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead? Mary was able to read our passage from Carl Sagan. So let's go ahead and go the way it looks on my screen. Diana can read a paragraph, then Deshane, then Cliff, and then Robert, and I'll follow up after that. Oh, no, we have the other Bob. So yeah, it looks like it'll all work out. Diana, could you go first? Let's see, you're on mute right now.
That's why you can't hear me. Okay. Lightning. The zigzag lightning flash enters subtle divisions or branches of a great tree of manifestation that has its roots in heaven. The celestial tree is often depicted in close association with lightning. For the Greeks, the ash tree, under whose protection mankind lived during the Golden Age, was believed to have a flaming bough. They thought that a divine bird stole this branch and carried the spark within it to earth. As in the Promethean myth, this was the origin of self-conscious man in the world.
Imagine a great embryo cloud hovering dimly over the darkened abyss of the Grand Canyon. All the multicolored strata of conditioned existence are absorbed into the pralaya, mother substance, and only the amorphous suggestion of the mother substance hovers. Suddenly, great dendritic cracks of searing light explodes within the pregnant cloud and illuminate it so that it hangs like a dazzling womb over the darkness, illuminating the pinnacled top of the great temple of Shiva below. These are life powers whose nervous energy supports the action of thought when mortal man attempts to grow towards immortality. Their power appears destructive because it helps to break down that which is established and to attain even ever new formations.
The American Indians often symbolize this archetypal idea in the thunderbird, from whose heart pours the zigzag lines of heavenly lightning. Some tribes, like the Kwakwiti, believe that the great thundering bird carried a sake upon its back, sake upon its back, while lightning flashed from its eyes. In tribal understanding, its voice was regarded as that of the Great Spirit speaking from the clouds, and its flash as his divine fire. From the clouds, his flaming voice spoke to them as the power behind all thought and speech, and they listened with reverence. To them, he would appear in dreams and visions as a great bird, combining fire and water, and, like the Greek Prometheus, come to them as a messenger between heaven and earth. Dreamers and sages saw him seated upon the flaming branch of the sacred flowering tree. They saw him there at the mountain center of the universe, bringing the lightning fire, placing it within the branch of the tree. The branches of that tree grow by joints and knots out of one another. They are like the knots of the dendritic pattern of lightning pulsing downward towards the earth.
The positive and negative point charge currents occurring in tree branches are of a pulsating nature, coursing upwards in such a way as to echo even as the sky meets the earth, as above, so below. When the lightning channel is formed by the initial flow of electric charges of the leader, it runs in steps to the ground where it where it causes an electrical breakdown of the air and completes a channel for the ensuing pulses. With the formation of the channel by the leader, when the formation of the channel by the leader is complete, the current from the earth proceeds upwards and produces the intense light flash we see. In trees, the conductivity arises from the sap, and the point discharges at the tips of the branches are responsible for the fact that trees often attract lightning and are not safe places to shelter during a storm. They seem to stand like lightning rods or trident forks in their environment, and the great electrical force of a bolt will crash down their limbs and trunk into the ground.
The coursing of electrical impulse from branch to branch is again mirrored in the nervous system of the brain, with its neurons that convey information signals through long axons and branching dendrites. The vital electricity coursing through the brain or the tree or the sky is under the same laws as cosmic electricity.
Okay. Well, how is that for mysterious? Unless anyone needs me to keep it up, I can put it up again later. I'll go ahead and stop sharing so we can see one another. And so one of the things that caught my attention in that was, first of all, that I had never heard of this comparison between lightning and trees. And our teacher was, our presenter for today was planning on speaking of lightning trees. So maybe this actually was an understanding by the tribes. And also the idea of this lightning being compared to the Prometheus myth in Greek mythology of this sacrificial bringing of the and lighting up of the mind of humanity. And he carried it in a straw. And this elsewhere in the article was somehow related, maybe I didn't know the plant that was being referred to, but it reminded me of bamboo with its nodules, like that. So those were some of the things that struck me. I guess also this connection between electrical fire and water was made pretty clear as well. And when I saw the depiction of the dendritic descent of the lightning, I was also reminded of someone I know who has done a lot of dissection. She was a medical illustrator. And she at one point had a chance to dissect a human lung, and everything about that lung very much mirrored a tree. You had this main stem, and then branches, and then tiny littler branches going out from that, tinier and tinier. So it seems to be a very universal pattern. In this article, there's more about how the brain works like that as well. So those are a couple just initial thoughts that I had to share from having read this article and collected those pieces of it for all of you. And now I open it up. Thoughts and experiences, Cliff.
Well, I think it's a shame that the woman that was going to do the presenting isn't here, because I think living in the Southwest like that and being of connected with the Navajo tradition, she's had a lot of deep experiences with lightning. I know Robert Moore and Donna and has spent a lot of time in the Southwest too, and it's prone to a lot of lightning. So it seems like, Renee, when we've gone and visited our daughter in Durango, it seems like every time we've gone there, she shows us another tree that's been hit by lightning. Her very first little house that she had in downtown Durango, right outside the front door, there was uh, you could see the lightning coming, the burn of the lightning coming down the tree. And in the current house where she's living outside of Durango, she showed us a tree within a stone's throw of her house in the parking area that had also been hit by lightning. And then also, she took us on a walk out kind of in nature close to her house and showed us that a tree that had been split by lightning so that it actually had two trunks going up. So there does seem to be a strong connection between lightning and trees. And Deshaun, when he gave his presentation, I think it was just last week, he really got me thinking about trees and the mystery of trees. So now we have the combination of the mystery of lightning and the mystery of trees, which is wonderful to join the two together. I was going to just share a couple of experiences up close and personal I've had with lightning, because I'm sure most of us might have had such an experience. I was sharing the other day that I've been thinking about my life as being kind of a big adventure, and that I've had a lot of adventures in my life. But the greatest adventure is the lifelong adventure of searching for truth or searching for wisdom. And that's what we're doing in this group, is we're on an adventure trying to understand truth and wisdom. But a couple of my earlier adventures, one, my mother let me go hike the John Muir Trail when I was only 14 years old. I spent the whole summer hiking the John Muir Trail. We spent 50 days. And we were in this area of the John Muir Trail called Evolution Valley. And we spent the whole summer basically climbing mountains in the Sierras. And we climbed up to the top of the highest mountain in Evolution Valley called Mount Goddard. And we were coming back down to our base camp, and we were going between two pinnacles. And they named these pinnacles Charybdis and Scylla after the Homeric epic, the Odyssey. And we were going right between these two pinnacles, and a lightning bolt hit one of them and knocked both of us to the ground. It was just so powerful. It still resonates in my being. And another time I was climbing a dome in Tuolumne Meadows, the tallest dome in Tuolumne Meadows, a pretty difficult climb. And we got to within a couple pitches of the top when we saw storm clouds brewing in the distance. And then we saw lightning starting to hit these other domes far off in the distance. And we go, oh my gosh. So we started simul climbing with a rope, but not really putting in much protection, to the top of Fairview Dome. And I got to the top first, and I was belaying my partner, Eric, up, when all of a sudden I was starting to feel something hitting my legs. And it was rocks. Rocks were jumping off the ground and hitting me all the way up to my kneecaps. And I was like, oh my God, this dome is going to be hit by lightning like right now. So I just started yanking my partner up to the top. I told him, you coil the rope and come down. I'm going to take all the hardware, which is all the metal, and I'm going to run down the backside with the metal on my back. So I started running down the backside, and he coiled the rope and started running, and I threw the rack of all this hardware down away from me, and then I pick it up and throw it again. But we got off the dome without the lightning actually striking us, but it was absolutely terrifying. And I told my friend as we got down, I felt like we were like our probability of being hit was the same as a child walking along a sidewalk, and there's a nickel on the sidewalk, and whether or not the child would see it and pick it up was the same probability as nature striking us with lightning. So those are just two personal experiences with lightning. It's a very powerful force. I just wanted to share those.
Just by the way, it took him decades to let me know about either of those happening. especially the one that happened while we were married. Mary.
Going back to the image of the tree, I've got mango trees in my yard, and every time, so many years go by, we have to trim them. And one time I was in the yard when the guys were looking at the trees and figuring out where they're going to trim. He made the comment that there are a lot of dog leg branches, meaning they're crooked, almost like the lightning. And I'm going, oh my goodness. Yeah, it's a dog leg, when the dog lifts its leg to. So, but there's more than just one leg. It's like the bamboo, like you said, it's segments, but it really does have that crooked back and forth. Amen.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Moore.
Well, I'm just curious, how fundamental branching is. That's what lightning does. That's what trees do. That's what neurons do in the brain. They all branch. So I just wondered if anybody had thoughts about this fundamental thing. You look at a leaf, it's branching. Look at the circulation in the blood vessels in your body, they're branching. It's just such a fundamental fact. And what that has to do with lightning. Is that the way Fohat or cosmic electricity manifests through branching?
I was aware what you were just saying, Robert, was first of all, my favorite memory and I didn't see a lot of lightning from San Francisco that much when I was growing up, but every year we'd go back to Utah, Sandy, Utah, and my grandfather was a farmer, and he'd wear his farmer things, and he'd smoke his cigar, and we'd sit on the porch with him at night, and all the mountains had all this lightning, and it was all coming down to earth, and it was just, I was amazed because I really hadn't seen anything like that. But I was also struck with the idea of the branching in the brain, the lungs, and for me, I see lightning as it's almost like, that picture of God and man touching. And it has that feeling to me when lightning comes down. It's almost like the cosmos is touching the earth. And there's something about sending, in my metaphoric way of thinking, sending light and love to the earth. Instead of being afraid of it, it's like, oh, the cosmos is touching the earth. And thinking of our brain and all the different things, they all look like trees to me and lightning. And it's like how that pattern, like you're saying, is throughout many different things. Look at roots. Look at how all of those are so intertwined, and how we are so intertwined as a humanity, and as all living beings and non-living beings are one. And it's like we are all part of that branch. And I was just thinking about all of us being part of the branch of our oneness. We show it in different ways, but we're all tendrils of the same branch. So that's what was going through my mind.
Yeah, it connects us all. But what you were talking about, like being afraid of lightning. I was in the mountains it was around 8,000 feet. I was camping and there was lightning, and I was outside, and I was so excited, it was just because I wasn't that familiar with getting to see lightning. But then suddenly the thunder and the lightning struck at the same time, and I was completely blinded by white light. I was just, dazzling, the brightness of the light. And then I didn't feel like dancing around outside anymore. I went back in the tent.
Who else?
What came to mind for me was actually a kind of similar thing that Diana and Robert were talking about, but in Zen, um, lightning is the reference to awakening, and its immediacy is what's stressed. Woman in the Blue Cliff Record says, thinking is like watching a comet go across the sky. In Zen is lightning. And in the um, um, one of the Prajnaparamita Sutras, they talk about Zen as a flickering light, lightning, a piece of dew, a flickering lamp. Ideas that it's that immediacy that comes. And so that's kind of an interesting aspect that even though, as Diana said, there's these patterns, they're experienced immediately. So you're not logically following the patterns, you are experiencing this thing that is patterned immediately. And so that always struck me. And what Cliff was mentioning, I know in the Southwest in New Mexico, near Taos, there are what are called lightning fields. When lightning, you just look out across and the lightning is just flashing all over this field. And certain artists, like performance artist Robert Smithson, have made, sort of works of art out of that phenomena of lightning fields. And I don't even know if it has to rain. It's just the lightning aspects that are part of that. And I guess I do have a personal experience. I was walking in Minnesota with two of my friends. My friend Lon is 6'5". I'm 6'2". His wife is 6'1", Janet. And we were walking down, and there was lightning happening around. We were going, we are the tallest legs around here. And just as we said that, lightning hit a street light right next to us. And we could feel the energy. I mean, it was just such an amazing feeling of just like emptiness and energy at the same time. It felt like the normal feeling was different. And, that was interesting for me.
Dishen.
It was wonderful to hear Cliff's story and also the passage we read at the beginning. I think there were two things that kind of made me to think. One about Cliff mentioned about resonance, and I picked up that word, and also I think the second paragraph mentioned about when lightning happens, the things that are in resonance with it will get that energy, and the one which may not be in resonance will feel scared, or in a way that you'll be pushed away from it. And from my experience being in the nature, resonance comes only when you allow yourself to be completely in surrendered mode or be in oneness with nature. Sometimes mind has this behavior of categorizing, naming, understanding, grasping every single aspect, and which is necessary as a step one to start the journey somewhere. And through that journey, when you find yourself deeply rooted in yourself, just like the tree, because that's one of the common themes in the tree, is it is deeply rooted in its own core value, and that is why it is ready to receive some sort of information from the cosmos. And us as beings, when we are settled in our own chi, in our own energy, or in our own truth in that moment, whatever you might be seeking, it's only in that moment nature will reveal something as a lightning light, which you are ready to receive and to perceive and understand. And one moment that comes to my mind, a story from nature, was we were in Kuala Range mountains, and I had no plan about what I'm going to do there for the next 1 hour, but we ended up hiking around that trail, and we were just following from one path to the other, not knowing which path I'm going to go. And it was just a random exploration, literally like those branches of trees, you would just go. And what I specifically remember from that moment was I was not making any decisions from the past or the future expectation. It was completely from where do I want to go from the present moment? What is catching my attention? And I kept following, and we ended up being at the some remote part of the secret beach where there was no one except a small river which was flowing and meeting the ocean. And in that moment, I heard few things. I heard two frigate birds flying from the top of the sky, and they started shouting, meaning their voice appeared that they were calling something, and you couldn't. Both of us, we are like completely just drawn to that energy, and we are just trying to hear, like, what are you trying? Like two birds just flying up in the sky, and they were circling around. And we look on the backside. There was all of a sudden we see a sun which is shining a giant rainbow around it. A full circle rainbow. And comparing rainbow with lighting is also an interesting thing to talk about afterwards. But in that moment, there was a lot of things happening outside. But for us to be able to perceive that information, we had to be completely settled within, I feel. And I think that is what I feel is resonance in your surrounding. Resonance, whether it's a tree in middle of on the earth somehow connecting to the lightning, or it's you being in your surroundings and you are trying to resonate some light which awakens you to your higher self. And when lightning happens, one thing is for sure: whatever is constant in your life, it is bound to change. It is here to break the safety of the mind that it is bound to catch on to, because transformation only comes when you dissolve those energies and you allow yourself to rise above it, so that something else can grow out of it for the future generation or for whatever it might be.
I think it's interesting what Deshaun was just saying there. Very much relates to the Promethean myth. Prometheus, I've heard the myth as he brings fire to man. But what we were hearing today was he brings consciousness to man. And that's kind of interesting because I think awareness is what we're talking about. And that is like fire. Heraclitus said the energy of mind is fire. And it's consuming, but it's also part of it already. It's not part by separation. So that's, I think, the immediacy of lightning in Zen is that you just experience it. You must be ready for it. You must be sort of attuned to your awareness. At the same time, your awareness is right there. The lightning strike is complete and unseparated, non-dualistic. And so it's interesting that Prometheus brings awareness, brings fire, brings this energy that allows man to be man. And man is in the world connected to higher forces that Deshan was talking about. So that's an interesting sense of element of what Prometheus actually brings.
Yes, Clev, thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking along these lines that see, let me gather my thought. That first I was thinking of karma, the idea of karma. Normally karma is something that's thought of in a kind of a negative way, but really karma is the force in the universe to maintain balance, to maintain equilibrium. And I think that's really what what lightning is doing. It's maintaining the balance of energetic balance between the heavens and the earth by sending that bolt of lightning down. And so it could be seen that way as a balancing force, but powerful. But say the individual and the divine, and what Bob and Deshan are talking about, the connection between the individual consciousness and, say, universal consciousness, and the resonant or receptive soul of an individual seeking, being able to be open to that higher energy, which Emerson called the oversoul or universal consciousness. And then what by having that receptivity, then insight can happen like lightning, like it's referred to sometimes as intuition or direct apprehension. And I remember hearing a story about the French philosopher Pascal, who was struggling with a philosophical problem, and he was about to step onto a bus. And he described it as being struck by lightning. He was hit with the solution to his philosophical problem, as if he was being struck by lightning. And I think even Einstein refers to things like this as well, that when one really has an insight into the fabric of the universe or into one's life, it is very much like Bob was saying, this Zen experience of direct knowing, I think, which is very, very powerful, like lightning.
And nothing is the same after that, I guess.
I think I saw Jade throw her hand up real quick, and I see Bob up there with his hand.
Jade, did you want to speak?
Mahalo, everyone. Well, so wonderful to hear your stories. I think lightning is something, and even the fire element is an element that I am just beginning to learn from. And I think it's such a beautiful teacher. And two thoughts come to mind. One is I practice Qigong and Cha Dao, which is the art of Chinese tea, daily. And water is an element that I feel that I have the strongest connection to in terms of an element. And through water, I'm also getting to learn about the other elements. And through practicing Cha Dao, as I'm pouring the tea in the practice, I am learning from the fire element on the table. So tea needs hot water in order to transform itself into, from the tea leaf, it's brewed, and then it transforms into tea to serve. And I feel that in the practice, I am learning more about the transformation in that fire element. And lightning, I feel it possibly is an extension of the fire element because it's so high in heat. And there's something about lightning, and through the stories that you all shared, that it's like a flash of knowing, a flash of consciousness, and a flash of probably transformation.
I guess in a way, lightning also occurs when two clouds completely filled with water collides, right? So it's interesting, the element of water coming there to generate that striking.
Yes. in the article that we were reading, another part of it is talking about like the clouds being like a womb or an udder, and when the lightning strikes, it releases that divine milk, this water that has been blocked and hasn't been able to enter the world. The lightning strikes, and now it's released, and the drought is eased as a result. That's another connection between the fire and water that we could consider as well. Bob.
When Jade was talking, it struck me that where we started, when you first were describing the Navajo depictions, and especially that third one where it was looking at them translating that into their weaving, that those two aspects of lightning are there. And as Jade said, water has this energy, has this way of moving in the world. It seeks its own level. It becomes, by its repetition, very powerful. It can erode away pure rock over great time. So those patterns that we saw, those jags, those branching elements are there. And yet lightning, because of its immediacy, gives us all that at once. But the patterns are still there. So we both are experiencing immediate connection with the cosmos, with reality. That's Zen experience. But then you have to live in the world. And so how you take that experience of immediacy and understand the patterns that are there, but not experienced in the completeness of the lightning, there's still that element. And I think that's kind of a fascinating aspect. In some of the koans, Dogen was focusing on fire. And fire, of course, consumes and leaves ash behind. But he said, fire never becomes ash again. So there's an element that fire is fire. And obviously it consumes, it produces, it has patterns, but they don't go backwards. And part of that is knowing how to live in the world with other people, with Zen insight, without necessarily being blasted away in the Zen experience, where you don't experience duality. I mean, you can't relate to other people unless there are other people out there. At the same time, how do you bring those two together, this experience of enlightenment? And in Zen, there are many stories of Zen teachers who have failed to do that, who have been enlightened, they have enlightenment experiences, and then, they have misguided sexual experiences with their students. They misuse funds. They don't live in the world all that well. Though they have these experiences of lightning, the process isn't quite there. And one of the, I guess, difficulties of Zen is that our teachers, our major teachers, are from Japan. And the Japanese Roshi at the time of World War II basically did the party line. They felt the emperor was there. They melted down the bells for the thing. They didn't resist the prejudice and anti-Semitism and various things that were going on. They didn't say, hey, wait a minute. They didn't exactly, it wasn't a shining moment. And that didn't mean they didn't have enlightenment. It meant that they weren't somehow showing the patterns of that enlightenment. So I don't know, I find that to be kind of a fascinating thing, is that, yes, I'm sitting for that experience of Satori, but that's not the entire story. We still have to live in the world. So I found that interesting. I think Deshan and Jade were kind of pointing at that aspect that, the tea ceremony is a beautiful Zen experience too, but it has nothing to do with lightning.
Seemingly. Yeah. Deshane.
I think listening to Bob also reminded me about Buddha getting his awakening under the Bodhi tree. There's a connection of the tree there, and how he perceived life after that because the journey kind of traces back on where that person came from, what journey that person had made, because most likely that will also open up and reveal the path in which he or she will be able to serve that particular light. The problems, sufferings, desires that they went through are probably the paths in which they will shed the light and create the new paths for generations to come forward.
I see Robert's virtual hand up there too.
I think it's been up for a while. Did you want to say something now, Robert?
Well, yeah, this balance problem and the attracting lightning, like trees attract lightning, but enlightened people are some called Bodhi trees. You know, not only was the Buddha enlightened under the Bodhi tree, but those who are enlightened are often called trees. But you can imagine, we had all these examples that Cliff talked about where trees suffered from getting hit by lightning. So, it just strikes me that it shows you how there has to be a very balanced growth to be able to cope with lightning.
Yeah. Cliff has been thinking a lot about the dialectic and the upward and downward dialectic, and I think has something to do with this idea of traveling between spirit and matter. And I know that our teacher Raghavan Iyer talked about in meditation how important the what he called the takeoff and landing are. That it's really important to know how to ascend into meditative state. It's equally as important, and perhaps more important, to know how to descend from it back into the world and land and ground. And to be able to do that smoothly and easily, of course, is an enormous skill to cultivate. And I wonder whether that would help us learn something about how one could be struck by this enlightening experience of understanding and still not be taken out by it. That perhaps if in meditation we're getting used to ascending to the heights of what we are able to attain in consciousness at any one time, and then come back down and ground it, if we were able to conduct that as a practice, then when we were actually, suddenly taken by a great understanding, if we would be able to then transmute that into a new way of living our lives, a new way of conceiving of what we understand to be a reality, that still allows us to connect with our fellow human beings and life around us.
One of the expressions of Zen is that the lotus blooms in the midst of the fire. And that's a way of maybe combining those two, of saying we are like lotuses blooming in the midst of fire, and the fire changes for all of us. We all have our own experiences of fire. It may be an illness, it may be a loss of a loved one. That's the fire. And at the same time, fire by its nature is connected as though lightning was right there at each moment. And so that's a certain way of looking at it as well. It's interesting that up in our Zendo, we have a Bodhi tree, and it was struck by lightning and almost destroyed. It came down, and it, for about 20 years, gradually healed up. That it was, you could see inside the tree, to the wood that was inside the inner part. Gradually, it's now almost complete with just a little line, and it's flourishing. The leaves are fine and all of that, and yet it is living with that experience of having been struck by lightning. So I think maybe that lotus blooming in the midst of fire is a way of seeing both, and they are both, but they're not separate, and we are not separate from all other beings. That's one element, and also with the cosmic reality, whatever that can be expressed as, and it's all fire or lightning.
Tishane?
Oh, just wonderful. I think one realization is coming is that trees are capable of awakening. I mean, just think for a moment. And if Buddha chose to be in the Bodhi tree, surrounded by that higher awareness, it may seem very simple, but there is a higher truth to it. And what Renée was saying about, if you want to grow higher and ascend higher in spirit, you also have to have the ability to ground. That is a tree. If you want to grow tall, you have to be deeply rooted into the ground. The deeper your roots are, the taller your ascent will be. And I think that's one of the learnings that also came from my own journey from my teacher, is never go beyond what you embody, and know where you have to deepen your roots before you rise to the top. And that is a symbolically energetic way of emulating a tree. And if something comes as a lightning flash, it is also, you also don't have to discount your roots. Pay attention to your roots, just focus on the roots. Lightning will happen in its own accord. And trees are capable of awakening. That's so beautiful. It's one of the learnings.
Trees are capable of awakening, but they are also already awakened. But I was struck as you were talking that the Confucian says emulating is what allows our character to flourish. And our character is really how we interpret our awareness. That, Prometheus brought us fire, but then we have to fire through our lives. We have to bloom in the midst of the fire. And so that emulation is, we can emulate our ancestors, we can emulate wisdom of sutras, we can emulate water as it flows to its own level, we can emulate a tree. Emulation becomes a wonderful expression. It's not just copying it, it's emulating is a form of cultivating our character.
And isn't it interesting that we understand that a tree's diameter in terms of its branching structure is pretty equivalent to what's going on down below in its roots. And so we need to find ourselves as deeply rooted as we are expansive in our upward branching. And that seems to be another way that we could, be struck by lightning without, being destroyed. But like this beautiful tree that you're telling us about, Bob, that has been struck to the heart and yet has managed to heal and thrives now. Yeah.
Well, and when a redwood tree is cut down and it may have lived hundreds of years, you can look at its rings and you can count the rings to see how old it is. But you can also see in the rings, oh, there was a drought here. Oh, there was a fire here. Oh, there was a lightning strike. I mean, a lot of it is recorded right there in
the rings. Yeah.
Yeah, almost like the mood of the rings, the flavor of the rings. The rings emulate that 1,000 years of living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Jade.
Such wonderful stories and observations. So grateful to hear all of this. One of the things that came to the forefront for me when I heard about lightning, and also what Renée said about having suddenly be taken by a great understanding is what it says in the Tao, and then also what one of our teachers said in Taiwan to us as we're sitting in this great big hall, this tea house. One of our teachers in Taiwan said to us, when you understand one thing, you understand 1,000 things. And in that moment, I've read that in the Tao, but to have someone living the Tao say that to you, it just it was like lightning, or a huge wave just hit me. And as I reflected through those experiences, I received great wisdom. And sometimes when the lightning hits you, it's like you don't see the ripples until later, but only if you're grounded and you continue to reflect, you learn from that one moment. And sometimes it's little sudden flashes of realization happen along the way. And I think that is one thing that Shane is very disciplined about, and that he's taught me, is every time we have such an experience of a sudden realization or of the Tao, then he's like, okay, what is nature's wisdom from this? What is the reflection? And so you continuously reflect on it, and then of course do karma yoga, take action, implement it in your life. So like Renee said, is how do you implement it so that it becomes a new way of living and being and breathing. And it's so beautiful to fold into your life and just see that ripple continue to ripple out.
Sacred connections.
Yes, from last week. Perfect connection. I think that was a great way to end our session, everyone. Next week, we'll be taking up the topic of the dawn. I'm hoping that we may be doing it with Aaliyah when she'll just be back from Japan. There's a lot about the dawn, the sun coming up in hula and in Hawaiian symbology. So that's what I'm hoping it. We'll see how it all goes. I thought that kind of dropping into the unknown here today, we made some really remarkable realizations together. So I just want to thank all of you for your contributions. I feel as if I have much broader and deeper understanding of this concept of lightning in our lives. Thank you all so very much. Aloha nui.